It's 5 o'clock p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. The South Korean government is going to encourage more investment in companies that enhance the country's competitiveness in exports so it can recover from crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic. President Moon Jae-in said in an expanded meeting of economy-related ministers today that now is the time to focus on fostering key industries such as semiconductors. The president pointed out that the semiconductor industry is among those showing the most distinct restructuring in terms of the global supply chain. And he pledged to actively support the industry so that Korea keeps its leading position. He asked economy-related ministries to ease excessive regulations that discourage innovation and to promote active investment so that the economy recovers. The Bank of Korea has brightened its outlook for the country's economy this year, suggesting that the recovery will be stronger and faster than previously forecast. But with uncertainty still so high, the BOK is keeping its benchmark interest rate where it's been since last May at 0.5%. Kim Sung-min has the details.
South Korea's central bank said on Thursday that the country's economy in 2021 will expand faster than its previous forecast of 3% GDP growth.
Growth around the mid-3% mark is easily possible, considering the current recovery trend of the global and domestic economy. There has been a large-scale stimulus package in the U.S., followed by a global economic rebound, and domestic exports, as well as facility investment, are also expanding faster than previously expected.
Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol added that the improvement in private consumption, followed by eased social distancing restrictions, is another sign of the recovery of the domestic economy. The projection comes as the country is seeing an increase in new COVID-19 cases, the daily tally reaching around 700, while the vaccine rollout is making slow progress. Behind the confident forecast is the assumption that the nation's COVID-19 situation will not get significantly worse than the current level. But given that there is still much uncertainty, the central bank on Thursday once again froze its benchmark interest rate at a record low of 0.5% for the seventh straight time. The bank aims to continue with its expansionary policy until the current economic recovery takes root, while keeping a close look at how the COVID-19 situation unfolds. Last year, the country's central bank cut its key interest rate twice to 0.75% in March and once more to a record low 0.5% just 2 months later in May. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
The American cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase has made its debut on the Nasdaq in what some are calling a watershed moment for the crypto sector that could take it mainstream. The same day, though, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell described cryptocurrencies as vehicles for speculation. Our Seoul reports.
Coinbase, the largest U.S. cryptocurrency exchange, went public on Wednesday U.S. Eastern Time on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. It went public through a direct listing, which does not involve issuing new shares, and opened at $381 per share, over 50% higher than its reference price of $250 set by Nasdaq as a benchmark. The stock closed at $328, but before that, it soared to a high of $429.54, making Coinbase Global's valuation hit $112 billion. Market watchers view Coinbase's debut on the public market as a breakthrough for digital currencies to be accepted by mainstream finance.
What it represents is a validation of this nascent market sector. So it really confirms that this industry sector is here to stay, but it also concretely demonstrates consumer-level confidence in cryptocurrencies.
However, on the same day that Coinbase went public, Jerome Powell defined cryptocurrencies as speculative assets. He also said in an interview with the Economic Club of New York that digital assets are not being actively used as payments. Bitcoin hit a record high of nearly $65,000 ahead of Coinbase going public, but the figure dropped to around $62,000 after Powell's remarks. On Thursday, South Korea's central bank governor Lee Ju-yeol also said many difficulties exist when it comes to using cryptocurrencies as a means of payment. 서은경, 아리랑 뉴스.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Kim Se-won, professor of economics at Ewha Women's University. Professor Kim, good afternoon, and thank you for making time today.
Good afternoon, David.
Well, the IMF earlier this month revised its outlook for global economic growth this year upwards to 6%, and for Korea it's been raised to 3.6%. If that holds true, it sounds like good news. What do you make of these forecasts, Professor?
In April's global economic growth forecast, IMF raised the global growth forecast to 6% from previous 5.5% in January's forecast. So that means global economy is likely to expand this year at the fastest pace in last 4 decades. There are two reasons behind this strong growth. The first is vaccination is accelerating, particularly among the advanced countries. And the second reason is advanced countries like U.S. and Korea provide aggressive stimulus packages to counter COVID-19 pandemic. IMF economic growth forecast for Korean economy is 3.6%. It is higher than that of Bank of Korea, OECD, and Korean government's economic growth forecast for this year.
The IMF and others are also warning that Korea could face a debt explosion because of its aging population and the long-term liabilities that implies. The IMF's projecting a big rise in the country's debt from 2026. Tell us what prompted this warning and what can be done about the situation.
Actually, Korea is a unique country in terms of the demographic structure changes. Believe it or not, the old population over 65 years old increasing speed is faster than any other country in the whole world. And as the end of last year, 2020, government debt increased up to 846 trillion won, or 44% of GDP. This is over 6% debt increase in a single year, and this is also the fastest pace in Korean history. About this problem, I don't think there is a quick solution to this. Instead, in the long run, it is necessary to reconstruct industry structure to a more environment-friendly way and more first wave industrial revolution way to maintain solid economic growth. And this is something actually pursued by President Moon's Korean New Deal plan. And second is we have to accept more immigrants from foreign countries.
Yeah, as you say, that has been a top priority for the government on several fronts. And now turning to the markets, stocks on Wall Street were mixed overnight as corporate earnings started coming in. The Dow up a little, but the S&P and the NASDAQ off by somewhat more than that. What's the story in the global markets?
U.S. market was mixed between Dow Jones and S&P 500 as some investors cash out of market, even with great performances of financial firms like J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs. Dow Jones gained 0.2% yesterday, but S&P 500 lost by 0.4% in a single day. The declines of S&P 500 and NASDAQ were led by tech stocks. The big tech stocks like Netflix, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Tesla, all dropped over 1 to 4% in a single day. Other major markets over Asia and Europe are mixed because of signs of another wave of pandemic.
Right, and Korean stocks did all right today, though. The KOSDAQ is holding on to the gains from its recent rally above 1,000 points. It's around its highest in 20 years. The KOSPI with a moderate gain today. Tell us about the local markets.
First of all, Bank of Korea's decision not to change key interest rate at 0.5% and more positive views on economy gave a positive impact on domestic market. Domestic KOSPI market had 4 straight day rise today with 0.4% return for today. Quite a few individual and foreign investors bought stocks, but institutional investors sold stocks in KOSPI market. But there was no big change in KOSDAQ return today. foreign investors and institutional investors sold in Kosdaq market.
And finally, Professor, a report from the automobile industry finds that Korean car makers are only 2% self-sufficient, that is, using domestic products when it comes to the semiconductors they need for the cars they make. That is to say, around 98% of the semiconductors they use are imported, despite Korea being one of the world's biggest producers of computer chips in general. What do you make of that data, Professor?
Even though Korean economy is known for its top-notch technology in chip production, Korean chip manufacturers do not much produce automobile chips. Therefore, Korean automobile companies, which is fifth largest auto producer in the world, import almost 100% of automobile chips from foreign companies. Korean chip manufacturers like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix cover 60% of global memory chip market, but they cover only really tiny part of global automobile chip market, like 2%. This is because of automobile chip production needs relatively low-level technology and less profitable than that of memory chip production. So to avoid this kind of serious shortage of automobile chips, government should be intervene the chip industry and market to promote more productions of automobile chips from medium and small-sized chip assemblers.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point there, Professor, about the profitability of these chips for automobiles. We'll have to see what they do about that. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us today, as always. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now the latest on the coronavirus situation in South Korea. The country on Thursday saw just under 700 new cases of COVID-19. The trend line is still moving higher, so the authorities are stepping up inspections of high-risk locations like cafes and daycare centers. Jang Tae-hyun reports.
South Korea reported 698 cases on Thursday, 670 of them local and the rest from overseas. Over 60% of the cases are from the capital region. The number is slightly lower than the previous day, but the general trend is an increase in cases. Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters official Jeon Hae-chul said on Thursday that a month ago, 1.11% of tests for COVID-19 came back positive, but this rate has increased to 1.62% in the past week. The rate has been increasing for 4 weeks straight. To stop the spread, health authorities are increasing their checks for prevention guideline violations. The official said that after the implementation of stricter checks starting April 5th, the number of violations went up from 30 to 150 cases per week. Starting from Thursday, central and local government workers will cooperate to inspect 9 types of vulnerable spots like cafes, bathhouses, and daycare centers. And health authorities will try to speed up the vaccination rollout for 350,000 medical center and pharmacy workers, which had been originally planned for late April. As of Thursday, a total of more than 1.28 million people have received the first shot of a COVID-19 vaccine. Jang Tae-hyun, Arirang News.
The city of Seoul has been recognized by UNESCO with an award for its innovative ways of bridging the digital divide affecting its senior citizens. Seoul is one of 10 cities to be featured at a forum this week on sustainable, inclusive, and smart cities. Specifically, the award for Seoul is in the education category. It got the Linking Cities Award for its use of robots in the homes of senior citizens to help them catch up with the kinds of technology now ubiquitous in our daily lives. For instance, the robots help seniors use the messenger app Kakao Talk, and it helps them book train tickets and use digital kiosks at restaurants. The award will be presented on April 15th, Paris time, at the UNESCO NetExplo Linking Cities Forum. The South Korean authorities are going to start making on-site inspections of kimchi factories overseas to make sure they're following good sanitation standards when making one of Korea's most widely consumed foods. This comes after a video went viral showing a man at a kimchi factory in China working waist deep in a pit full of cabbage with no sanitary gear and rusty excavators being used to move the cabbages. The Ministry of Food and Drug Safety says it'll send inspectors to more than 100 kimchi manufacturers overseas in the coming years and apply the same standards it does to domestic ones. This year it aims to inspect 26 factories overseas and then at least 20 every year going forward. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.